Hi, everyone. I'm back again. I'm going to be doing the compatibility chart between Matthew Perry and Julia Roberts. Now, I know they were only together for, I think, like 3 months. And so I really had to go over their Synastry chart to see what was going on. I haven't read his book, but I did read a few excerpts from it online. And so that further compelled me to go over the chart to see how accurate everything that I read was. So I'm going to get into it. His sun conjuncts her moon 3 degrees, and her sun conjuncts his moon 3 degrees. This is a double whammy. And at first glance, it's really nice because sun conjuncting moon is like a best friends aspect. But you have to dig deeper to find out what the backstory is, or what the asteroids are, the energies that they are contributing to this synastry chart. His sun not only conjuncts her moon, but his nemesis conjuncts her moon, and nemesis has to do with betrayal or it's an enemy-like behavior. Now, he wasn't an enemy towards her. However, there's his nemesis is conjuncting his sun, and his sun represents him. So I think, judging from what this aspect is telling me, he was his own worst enemy. And it's conjuncting her moon, a very important luminary. So she saw this, and these energies from him came to her. His Caputo and Blow conjuncts her sun, 1 degree. Caputo has to do with, can be infatuation or also love, because in this chart, his Sirius conjuncts her descendant 3 degrees. So there was a love that he brought to her. However, Blow is also conjuncting her sun. And Blow has to do with failures and mistakes. So that's accurate. And Blow can also mean drugs as well. Her Venus conjuncts his Apollo, Mercury, and Grimm. Venus, the love planet, conjuncting his Apollo. So she adored him. Apollo is the asteroid that has to do with, it's a, in Greek mythology, very alluring, manly type energy. And Mercury is communication. So there was talk of love between the two of them. And I think they were on the same page in the beginning because of the sun-moon conjunction. But Grimm is there as well. And Grimm, that asteroid has to do with fairy tales. So this is it's not long lasting, because there's also indications of that in this compatibility chart, which I will get to, specifically Neptune. And if you're familiar with the energies of Neptune, you know how that plays out. His Jupiter conjuncts her Alma and point of fortune. And Alma has to do with soul. And Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system, magnified these energies from her. Her Uranus conjuncts his Melpomene, 1 degree, and Asmodeus, 0 degrees. Very interesting. Uranus is very unstable. You never know what to expect from this planet, and things can happen out of the blue. Now, it's conjuncting his Melpomene, and that has to do with tragedy. And Asmodeus is the demon of lust. So we have Melpomene holding hands with Asmodeus, and the demon of lust. The energies also signify being cornered or trapped, and there's a tragedy involved with this. And it happens, since her Uranus is conjuncting this, it happened out of the blue or not expected. So I think that there were problems between the two of them in the intimacy department. And there's further indications of that as well, specifically with Uranus squaring Mars. And when you have someone's Uranus squaring Mars, especially at a very tight degree, there will be problems in the sex department. More than likely, it happens out of the blue as well, and there can be cheating. I'm not saying that either one of them cheated on each other, but there is problems in the intimacy department between the two of them. Her Jupiter conjuncts his Lysistrata and Apophis. Jupiter conjuncting Lysistrata. That has to do with sexual manipulation and also the withholding of sex or no sex. And Apophis is holding hands with Lysistrata, and that has to do with destruction. So again, this is there's a huge issue between the two of them, I think, judging from what the chart is telling me. I think that the reason that why they broke up, and I will get to that to validate my analysis. I don't think they were compatible sexually, and it became an issue, and that is why they didn't last very long. I think it, like I said before, was it like 3 months tops? Her Melpomene conjuncts his descendant, and Melpomene has to do with, like I said, tragedy. So she brought tragedy into this relationship, and he felt the tragedy and wasn't happy about it because her Vesta, Tauro, and Grieve conjuncts his vertex 2 degrees. And the vertex is a very important point in the Synastry chart. It's like a second ascendant. Now, her Vesta conjuncting his vertex, this has to do with devotion and reliability. The person will be devoted towards you and you can count on them. But she was very forceful about it because Vesta is holding hands with Tauro, and Tauro has to do with like a bully-like behavior. So I did read that she would send him faxes all of the time. She was very not bully-like about it, but you could rely on her sending him these texts, and she wanted to get together with him, and they finally did. But in the end, there was grieving involved over the end of this relationship because her Grieve also conjuncts his vertex. His Ceres conjuncts her descendant 3 degrees, and I've already explained that energy. Ceres has to do with an unconditional love, and that's what he brought to her. Now, his Mars conjuncts her Hypnos 0 degrees, and Hypnos has to do with having a hypnotic effect on another person. So she was, I think that she was very enthralled by him in the beginning, and he had a hypnotic effect on her because Mars has a lot of fire and power to it. His Calypso conjuncts her vertex 2 degrees, and Calypso has the energies of things that are hidden or not really out in the open. And since his Calypso is in the 5th house, that has to do with dating and partying, drinking. So I think she knew what was going on in his life with his addictions, but in the beginning it was hidden, and she eventually did figure it out. Her Mars conjuncts his Juno 3 degrees, and Juno is the asteroid that has to do with marriage. So I think he would have married her if this relationship progressed further. And this is another reason why I don't think that he was the one that ended this relationship. I think that it was either mutual or it was her decision. And she said to him, listen, I'm a really big star and I don't want to have any negative influence on your career. So you can just blame it on me and just say that it was your decision. Because her Knot and Requiem conjuncts his ascendant 1 degree. And Knot has to do with no, there won't be a long-lasting relationship to this. And Requiem is also conjuncting his ascendant, and that's a death marker. It means like funeral for the dead. So this relationship, to me, was pretty much dead on arrival, and it didn't take long for them to go their separate ways. Her Peri, PNA, that's his last name, and North Node conjuncts his midheaven. The midheaven is it's right out in the open. It's on the cusp of the 10th house, which rules the career. So her North Node conjuncting his midheaven, she brought favorable circumstances to his career by being on his show. And since Peri, the PNA, is also conjuncting midheaven, this is like fate to me. His Sappho conjuncts her midheaven 2 degrees. So in this show, between the two of them, you could see a lot of eroticism, because whatever conjuncts your midheaven from the other person, it will be way out in the open, and everyone will see the energies of the aspect between the two of you. Now, his point of fortune in the 10th house, which rules the career, conjuncts her night asteroid 0 degrees. And night has to do with she'll have his back. She will defend him, and she will be loyal. And this is, you could see the loyalty that she had towards him. And I don't think that she will ever really come out and say what really happened between the two of them behind the scenes. And his point of fortune is conjuncting night. And like I've said before, the point of fortune is like a mini Jupiter, and it magnifies whatever it touches. His Sedna, Typhoon and Freud conjuncts her Lilith 2 degrees. Again, here is more indications of sexual incompatibility between the two of them, because Sedna has to do with a separation and betrayal, and Typhoon has to do with overwhelming psychological events. Holding hands with the asteroid Freud, that energy is like psychoanalyze. Sigmund Freud, he was a psychoanalyst, and it's conjuncting her Lilith, which has to do with raw sexuality. So to me, it's like there was this separation between the two of them intimately, and he was trying to psychoanalyze why they couldn't make this sexual connection. Now, there are, he did say in the book, I read online, that he had problems with, I think he said, erectile dysfunction. So I think that obviously he could not, there's problems in the plumbing department. And ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So I really don't have to spell it out for you. But don't be mad at me for saying this, because he said it first. And I think this really coincides with the relationship between him and Julia. His Apophis trines her Lilith 0 degrees. Lilith, again, like I said, raw sexuality. Apophis trining Lilith, destruction. No sex. He tried, but ultimately, I think she gave him a couple of chances in that department, and then was like, listen, it's obviously not going to work out between the two of us, and I think we should call it a day. And like I said before, his asteroid Freud is conjuncting her Lilith, so he tried to psychoanalyze this and maybe came up with certain excuses or other, he couldn't quite pin it down why this was happening. Her Don Quixote conjuncts his Venus, Lilith, and Eros, 2 degrees and 1 degree. Again, more validation. Don Quixote has to do with the impossible dream. You think something is going to be wonderful and like a utopia, but it turns out to a hot air balloon that just won't take off the ground. And it's conjuncting his Venus, the planet of love, and Lilith, raw sexuality, and the asteroid Eros, which has to do with eroticism. So it just didn't work out between the two of them. in I think that was the biggest issue. He said that he felt that she was too good for him and that she was just slumming it. But no, you know, in the media and when there's people that are famous and celebrities, they don't come out and tell you the truth because they don't really want anyone to know what really happened. But this chart is telling me, it's giving me validation to what he said in his book. Now, there's more here. I'm going to get to the transits that happened on the day that he died, her transit chart. But before I do that, there's a couple of things that I want to say as well. His Medusa, Taureau, and Tantalus conjuncts her ascendant. And Medusa has to do with being like a tease. If you're familiar with Medusa in Greek mythology, she would lure men into her web and then she would turn them to stone. And his Tantalus is also holding hands with Medusa as well as Taureau. And Tantalus has to do with, it's like a fruit, a piece of fruit on a tree, and you want to get the fruit, but you can't get to it. It's just out of reach. And holding hands with Taureau, he really wanted to be with her, and he was tried so hard to, but it was out of reach to him. It was out of his grasp. And this also coincides with her Don Quixote in the previous aspect that I talked about. And all these asteroids are conjuncting her ascendant, so that's a very important angle. So this all ties together. Her Atropus conjuncts his north node 2 degrees. Very important. Whatever conjuncts your north node from the other person, that'll be the basic theme of the relationship or where it's going. And her Atropus has to do with, it's a death marker. Atropus was responsible for cutting the cord and determining the life of or in death of someone. So that's why I think that she was the one that decided to end this relationship and told him, just you can tell everyone that it was your decision. His Neptune squares her moon, and his sun squares her Neptune 2 degrees. So Neptune here, fogginess, illusion, and with the Neptune squaring moon, I've talked about that before. You can't rely on the person to be there in a way that you need them to be. It's like looking through a window that's dirty. You can't see clearly. Hard to pin down. And since his sun is squaring her Neptune, she was the same way. Eventually, Neptune came into play, and it was just too foggy and not reliable, which also is validation for the Tantalus asteroid that I talked about and Don Quixote. Now I'm going to get to the transits on her chart on the day that he died. It was at 4 p.m., I think. It was 4 p.m. that they found him. So on that day, in her transit chart, Lachesis was conjuncting her Peri asteroid 1 degree in the 10th house. The 10th house has to do with career. So she knew him through work, and Lachesis is a death marker, and it's conjuncting her Peri asteroid, which is his last name. Wow. Very eerie, and just gives me goosebumps when I see these PNAs and how everything just ties in together. The asteroid Peri also is conjuncting her moon, 0 degrees. Wow. The moon, one of the most important luminaries in your chart, and this affected her strongly. It affected her emotionally, and she was very upset about it, as well as everyone else. And I hope he rests in peace, and that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed this interpretation, and I will be back again soon. Have a nice day.